Welcome to the 2009 Fusion Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Fusion, a conference for next-generation ministry leaders, took place November 12th through 14th at the Kaiser Renaissance Inn and Conference Center. The following workshop, entitled Children's Ministries Meet and Greet, was led by Darren Daugherty.
I didn't tell last night very much of my ministry experience, so that you know where I come from. Maybe you'll have questions that are very specific to experiences we've been through. Let's see. I went to Bible college first for mostly youth ministry. Then I got sick. No, I'm not going to go there. But I found myself in children's ministry in my first position. My wife and I had a dual position. She was a paid music director there at the church, and I was Christian education with children under that. And what was cool about this is the pastor that approached us with this position, we were still in Bible college last year, and he said, the position doesn't open for 6 months. And right away I said, children's ministry, my friends and I tease each other about that, you're going to be a children's pastor. No, you're going to be a children's pastor, and so it was kind of like, nah, not at all. But yet there was a creative side to me that I thought, well, let's dabble in it and let's check this out. We have 6 months, and so we got involved in our church in children's ministry, and it was an immediate click, like, wow. This is exciting. We got a vision for it, reaching generations to come behind us, and we just felt like, yeah, this is it. So we had a position waiting for us. We went to that position right after Bible college. It was in Rapid City, South Dakota. We went with the pastor who was new to that church. He was following a pastor who had been there 20 years. I hear the groans. Yes. The board had this idea. Let's get someone totally different than the pastor we've had for 20 years. That idea did not go very well, and we found ourselves learning a lot about church ministry. In fact, the pastor even left before we did, and we were left kind of running the place, and some interesting things happened during that time. And anyway, make it short, I found myself then moving to a position in Minnesota. A pastor had called, and he had heard about us and so on, and so we took that position, and we were there for almost 15 years. I started there as children's pastor. After being there just a couple years, I really felt a new passion, kind of a redefining towards family ministry, but not leaving children's ministry, but expanding what we did. I remember I was working on a master's degree in elementary education. I wanted to be better at understanding children and how they develop and how I can best teach them. And I was driving home from that. This was one of those defining moments. I'm driving home, and I am listening to Focus on the Family, and on the radio is a woman named Robbie Castleman, and she's talking about her new book, new at that time, called Parenting in the Pew. And she's a pastor's wife. It's an excellent book. I recommend it to all of you to read. You could read it in one sitting. It's a very thin book. And as I'm listening, she's talking about having children in church and training children in church and the parent's role. And I'm thinking, I have older people that walk up to me as the children's pastor and say, wow, you have so much fun with the kids. I wish I would have had that when I was young, and all I did was sit there and count ceiling tiles. And so I have older people saying, we have arrived. And I'm feeling good about what we're doing, because I have parents saying, my kids really love coming. They think it's a lot of fun. But yet this woman on the radio is suggesting we go backwards 10 to 20 years. And so at first I'm, what in the world is this? Well, but I got the book. And I read the book, and the book really resonated with me. That so much of what I was taking upon myself to do for an hour and a half, how could we better help parents do those things throughout the week? And at that same time, I had another experience. These two kind of go together. We had this this big meeting after church one Sunday so that I could share my vision with all the parents. We said, parents, come. We'll provide the food. We'll take care of your kids. We just want to share our vision. If you're not even interested in hearing me, it's a free meal. So come. And so we had a nice big turnout. Everybody's ready. Everybody's in the fellowship hall. I pray to start the meal. It's all laid out on a buffet table. And the kids, right when I say amen, the kids race towards the table. They're piling their plates up. They're having no consideration for those behind them. They're taking more food than they need. Except at the back of the line, this very long line, there are 3 families where their kids are with them. And I walked up to them and I said, as you know, I'm the children's pastor. We have a 1-year-old now, my wife and I. What's the secret? What's the difference here? And I didn't have to say any more than that. They knew what I meant. They said, the 3 of us are in a parenting class at our house. Like, wow. Another key for me as a children's pastor to get a hold of. Because something different is happening in the lives of the kids in those 3 families that aren't happening in all of the others. A respect for others, a consideration for people that come behind them. And so we got a hold of that, and we decided to start doing more parenting classes. So anyway, my role expanded from just children's pastor to being children and family ministries. And it grew in many different ways. We would do intergenerational type things, which I'll mention in a little while. And finally, I came to a point at the church where I said, Pastor, I think I'm going to be moving on someday. I really want to do family ministry. I would love to be in a position where I can dedicate my whole focus to discipling the parents. Not that I don't love the kids anymore. I do. But this has just been growing in my heart. And he said, why can't we do that here? And it surprised me. I didn't think he was ready to hire another staff person. So we did that at our church. We hired a children's pastor. And I became over the umbrella of the preschool, children's, youth, and young adults, those 4 pastors. And again, I'm not the boss of them, but kind of over the umbrella so that we could think together and strategize. How do we stop just splitting up families when they walk in the door, but actually get them back together and focus on the family, not just the age groups represented in the family. And so some of the things we tried, some things worked, some things, because our church was around 1,000 people, we had to go very slowly and kind of warn people and get them used to it first. And so my heart has been a lot of family ministry because I have seen the results. I've seen that our emphasis on parenting classes made a bigger impact on the kids in our church than any of the great kids things we did. We had a sidewalk Sunday school. We had great Saturday special events, Royal Rangers, Missionettes. We had JBQ, all of the things, and I felt like we did them well. But the thing that changed the culture, really, of kids' church more than anything was impacting the parents. And when I was invited to go to Southwestern and teach children's ministries, I said, well, can I change the degree? Can it be children and family ministries? Can I have the freedom to expand that degree? And I've had a lot of fun over the past 4 years doing that at Southwestern. We have a minor in children and family ministries, an associate's, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a bachelor's, and then 2 years ago we started a master's degree, which a number of children's pastors are involved in, and all of those are online, so you could either do them on campus or anywhere in the country. So it's been fun to develop this more. And what's also fun is to watch it catching in places. For me to have been saying something for the past 10 to 15 years and to see it, I'm not claiming to be the pioneer. Let me be clear on that. But to see it catch in different people and to begin to catch steam, this idea of let's go back a little bit more and think about how we get families together and help parents. So that's one of my big themes, one of my something on my heart. And let me say, though, I would still love to answer any questions you have if it's in regards to the simple age-separate type ministries, Royal Rangers, Missionettes, Kids Church, Sidewalk Sunday School, Release Time, any of those type of things. Please feel free to ask those questions. Do you have any? Yes?
My name is Lisa, and I'm from Garibaldi.
Hi, Lisa.
But my question to you is, how do you, if you have kids that come to church, their parents don't come to church, but they're in the grandparent home,
yes,
trying to get the family connected to even come to church because they'd rather send the kid and not come at all. We we've done Christmas plays, and the parents won't even come, or the grandparents won't even come. So how do you try to merge that connection of that missing family link?
Yeah, that's very good, because there's two extremes, I think. One extreme is do everything separate and really just don't look at the parents in the picture. The other extreme is to go so far with the concept of family ministry that you leave out the kids who don't come with their parents or whose parents are very uninvolved. And I'm speaking of a balance, and this was our solution. Everything that we did for families, we always worked ahead of time to find spiritual adoptive parents. We had a family Sunday school class. We had fathers and sons retreats, mothers and sons and fathers and daughters dinners. All of these things, we had to think ahead and have adults sign up so that we could say to the single mom or to the kid without parents, we want you to come anyway. We have some people for you to meet, some people for you to sit with. And again, I'll talk about it in a moment. One of the greatest ones was our family Sunday school class that we did only in the summers. And we would have people sign up because we would make the plea from the pulpit or invite them personally. Those of you who don't have kids yet, this is a good thing for you. Think of the ministry for you this summer, that you're going to be the spiritual adoptive parents for some kids to come to attend Sunday school with them. Or those of you with an empty nest. Your kids are gone. You can invest in the next generation behind your kids. And so we worked hard to sign up those type of families ahead of time. And it goes back to the illustration I shared last night. The pictures that we could put into the lives of these kids. See, I'm convinced that if we keep people always with just their age group, we've never equipped them to break the cycles of their families. And so people will use family ministry and say, well, we shouldn't do family ministry because it pushes away the kids without a family. No, they're the ones that need it the most. They're the ones who need the pictures that to be a successful, functional father and mother in the future, especially when they didn't have them before. Here's another thing that happened. One of my responsibilities was to start small groups in our church. We purposefully, as Shane, you're doing it at your church too, we purposefully made half of them multi-generational groups. And I was blown away by the number of teenagers who said to me, "Thank you for doing this. I have never been in a Christian home before." Kids who had gotten saved in our church, and they're from unsaved families, they said, I had no idea of how much these small groups would mean to me to watch a Christian family in action and to be in their home. And I really, most of my focus was on the kids and the parents, and hoping the teens would get involved. But I was so blessed because one teen would say it, and then another teen would say, yeah, that's right, I need to go too. And it just kind of mushroomed. We had all these teenagers attending these small groups. They weren't crying, hey, where's our small group? And actually, just on a personal matter, when I see a church start small groups and the teens start their own, I feel sad because I feel that's an opportunity where we could actually get people together in an informal setting. That's just my own personal. Yes?
When you're doing that, what kind of curriculum do you use? How do you keep both age groups engaged? Adults, if you're not losing the adults because the curriculum or whatever you're using is so young, or you're not losing the children. How do you keep that? Is there a good curriculum or a good resource that you can use?
Yeah. Are you talking about the small groups or the family Sunday school? Or either one?
How do you make it work?
Yeah, the family Sunday school, I'm picturing slides in my mind because it's not you, but we're hitting on things that are later in my presentation and so on. And yeah, anyway, I can show you a picture of it. Is what I'm trying to say. It's a curriculum called it's by heritagebuilders.com. It's the Family Night Tool Chest. Focus on the Family is one of the publishers. Sometimes David C. Cook. I think they've cooperated on these. And what it is it's not curriculum for a family Sunday school class. It's not curriculum for a family small group. It's curriculum for parents to do fun family devotions with their kids. And when I saw that, 13 weeks, 12-week unit, I thought, this is the perfect setup to have in a family Sunday school class, because what happens is if you're the one leading it, you just become the facilitator. Families are around tables, and before class starts, you put the items on the table, you put the list of questions on the table, you have Bibles on the table, and you say, well, okay, at this point, take the lump of Play-Doh in the middle of your table, everybody take a piece of it, and molds this out of it, and talk about blah, blah, blah. And so you're asking the parents at the table to take the lead. You're saying, when you get to the part of the Bible story where you're applying it to their lives, you're saying, parents, there's a list of questions on your table. Discuss those with the children at your table. If it's a table led by grandparents, discuss those at your table. So you are putting the things on the table, you are facilitating it, and then what the beauty of it is at the end you say, parents, you just did family devotions. Some of you are afraid of that. Some of you are scared. You don't even know where to start. You just did it. And in fact, here, we're going to give you a sheet that takes you through the rest of the week of doing family devotions with your kids. It doesn't always have to involve cookie dough or Play-Doh or stuff like that, but here, you just did it. And we would also have families sign up to share the Bible story for that day. We made the rules that it had to be dramatized in some way. So it was neat that every Sunday, a family from that class would go home and rehearse and get the costumes or whatever to present the Bible story for that day. Those are just a few of the things we involved. And again, before we even got to that point of holding the class, we signed up childless couples to be spiritual parents to kids whose parents were not coming to church. And I'll show you in the photos a few of the families that represent what I described. Empty nesters or couples without kids yet. Does that answer your question? Yes, no, yeah, sort of? Okay, that's the best curriculum. Even though it's not designed for what I'm describing, we loved it because there are probably 15 to 20 different copies. There's one on Proverbs, there's one on money management.
And you called it the Family Chest, or what?
Yeah, a couple of them have on the cover Family Night Tool Chest, but if you go to heritagebuilders.com, that's where they list most of those. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Can you talk about how this impacts the church, the broad, scope of the church? So, like the children, they're learning at their age, and they've got these adoptive parents, but how they graduate on to the next phase. How does that encompass with youth group and then college? And then do you see the whole church just becoming a big family? Is that what the outcome is then? Yeah,
it did. And because we had a staff that all was on board with the same philosophy, it made it much easier. Here's another thing we did. One Sunday night, I know a lot of churches don't have Sunday nights right now, but we still did. Sometimes it was just the staff and the worship team, but our pastor gave us that opportunity. No, but anyway, one Sunday night a month, we made intergenerational night. And so it was big planning. Me, the youth pastor, children's pastor, all of us got together, and we made a unique night that would purposefully mix the generations. For example, one night they come in, and as they come in the door, we're in the back, and we're making sure that equal number of older people and teens and so on get blue, equal numbers get red, equal numbers, and they had to go sit with their group. And every time we held this service, we would have it in a different location in the church. 1 month it would be in the sanctuary, another month fellowship hall, another month in the youth chapel. And we surprised them. We did something totally different, but it was a way to keep every generation still connected together and to understand. I should just keep going with the slides. No. These are some great verses. Write those down. There you go. Okay. Thinking of the slides I've already done. Let's just quickly look at one of the greatest changes that happened in America to affect the family was industrialization. At the end of the 19th century, we had husbands, wives, we have families moving to the cities more than ever. We have both husbands and wives working. We have children not really going to school, the masses of children, because school laws weren't in place in states. We have growth in extra-familial institutions, YMCA, boys clubs, things like that, to try to meet the need of what's happening to these kids who are not going anywhere. In fact, we know the child labor laws came into place here too, because many of the kids would go to the factories and work. And it's a secular history book that I found this quote in: "Sufficient numbers of students attended and graduated to support a complex matrix of peer groups, societies for the first time." That this so impacted American life. In fact, another part of this book says, this is when we went from a family-centered society to an age-segmented society. And, of course, we're not saying let's go back to the end of the 19th century, but if we lost something, how can we help to regain some of that somehow? Not by saying no to our culture now, but how do we integrate some of those things? How do we go from the one balance is keep them separate all this time, the other balance is families only and forgetting the kids without parents, and again, there's a balance in the middle we have to go towards. There's some more verses for you to write down. I'm sorry. Okay. Our common practice: everybody get involved in the church. Come pour all your resources in. Come get involved. I remember as being on a church staff and seeing people that were too busy to come get involved in this certain event, and like, what your kid has sports? What? Why would you put sports over? Families are trying to find a balance in their lives, and we're frustrated at them because they're not pouring into our philosophy or our idea of what ministry should be. And write those all down, please. Okay. This is what we want to happen. Yes, come get involved in the church and be the body of Christ, but we want to pour back into your home to be the lighthouse in your neighborhood, to be the place where kids without parents, kids who don't know Christ, can come and know Christ and see a family in action. And yes, you bring them to church, but we want to pour back into you to be that lighthouse in your neighborhoods. And again, we already talked about the arguments that people have. Well, what about kids from single-parent homes or kids without parents who come to church? We answer that. We have events for them. And like I was saying earlier, Brian, before you came in, how do we help those kids break a cycle in their life? How do we help them, give them a vision, the photos in their photo album? We give them models. We let them experience. If we're going to have all families together in a church service, those kids aren't going to just go sit by themselves or be excluded. They're going to be invited to go sit with certain families. We're going to put it into the hands of parents. Hey, parents, don't just have your kids sit by you in the service, but invite some kids to sit with you so that they can be a part, so they can see what a family is supposed to be. And we're getting to the practical stuff here, and that's why I'm flying through all this. Okay. Our Fathers and Sons retreat. One of the first things that we implemented when we started to say, let's do more than just the kids. Let's help dads become the dads they're supposed to be. I was really proud of the dads in our church that caught a vision for this. Dads with daughters and no sons. We had a lot of those guys sign up for this to say, yeah, I'll be the dad to a boy for the weekend. I'll pour into his life for the weekend. Of course, we have to screen them very well. We have to go through all those precautions. They're not going to have their own room together, but maybe a big room where a number of dads and a number of sons are staying. All those precautions, but to help them pour into the life of a boy who doesn't have a dad. We never left them out. One of the neat things we would do is we'd have a candlelight service on the first night. We'd light a candle that represented Jesus in the middle. And then every dad and son was encouraged to take a turn and come up and tell everyone else what's so great about their dad or their son. And I can't tell you how many boys came to me, even in their teen years, and said, that was the only time I heard my dad say anything nice about me. That's sad, But on the other hand, we kind of forced Dad to create a memory that boy will hold on to for a long, long time. As they got older, again, my focus at first was minister to kids and their parents. But as they got older, they started saying, well, why can't we still come to the Fathers and Sons retreats? So what if I'm in 7th grade or 8th grade? And so we said, you're right. We expanded it. We included the teens too. And we would do a lot of fun, goofy games where the teaching your son to shaving the shaving cream off the balloon. And, of course, we'd blow them up really far so that they would pop and shaving cream would go all over the place. We'd bring our Rangers Pinewood Derby track, and Fathers and Sons would make a car while they're there. But the meaningful thing, the most meaningful, was that night when you'd hear dads, and sometimes even tears running down their faces and saying, I'm proud of this boy. And again, you never know. This might be a dad who doesn't say those kinds of things, but we've forced him to. Fathers and Daughters Dinner, another one of those things. One of the highlights, again, forcing parents to put the pictures in the photo albums, to say, when they walked in, they had to write a letter to each other right there before they went to their table. And what we would do is we would take that letter, and we had a photographer there that would take their picture. We'd take that letter and put it with the picture in a frame so that that daughter would always have the special note that their dad wrote to them. Again, maybe the only note Dad ever wrote to her, but we helped make it happen. It was such a blessing for me to go into a home, even like 7, 8 years after one of these events, and to see. There was one family, a dad with 4 daughters, and he had these from every year. They had them on the wall in their home. And I said, what does this mean to you? And they said, well, we realize when our daughters leave the house, Anna, when she leaves, I'm going to give her the 3 that she's in. I'm going to give these ones to Ruth. I'm going to get, And so we helped create a memory for them. And Mothers and Sons Day, we thought, well, let's cater to the sons. Let's have a day where sons and moms are doing things they might not usually do. Let's have some sloppy things, some shaving cream, and some kickball, and we learned very quickly. And it was good, because the mom said, why do the dads and daughters have a nice dinner? And we have to go out and get all muddy and sloppy. And they said, my husband is buying a corsage and taking my daughter to the nice dinner, and here I'm eating hot dogs with my son. And what about training him in gentlemanliness, I guess? And they had a point, and that was a good point. And so we decided, let's take the same model of the father-daughter dinner and make it a mother-son's dinner, and use it to teach the son how to really treat a lady and be respectful. So it was like the father-daughter dinner. The son would have to buy the tickets. We weren't going to take the money from the mother. She wasn't going to come buy them. If the mother came and said, I need to buy tickets, no, your son has to do that. The son would buy the tickets. We gave the son a card when they got the tickets, a card of things to do. Open the car door for your mother. Pull out her chair. If you can find some extra money somehow. Actually, we provided this when they got there. We had a flower for them to give to their mother. And so training them in manners and how to, again, they may not be getting that at home. Again, we had them write a note to each other. Moms are usually more expressive, so probably weren't as many in the bunch who were first-timers to express love to their son. But some beautiful opportunities. And think of the logistics of this. I figured out a way to do this very simple. Have the dinners back-to-back nights. You have the same decorations. You have the same food. It doesn't mean one gets leftovers. You just don't have to buy as much chicken and things, or you buy double. So it worked out really well that we would just do them back-to-back on a Thursday and Friday night, or a Friday and Saturday night. And we made it a fun affair. I'll go on to some of the Fathers and Sons Sunday School class. Every few years we would do a Sunday School class during the summer. We had normal Sunday school throughout the school year, but in the summer it was the time where we'd experiment. We'd say, let's bring the families together. Fathers and sons, again, signing up men ahead of time, giving men a vision. Hey, it's your turn to pour into a boy who doesn't have a dad here at church, and come be part of this class. We use some great books, Man on Demand, Plants Grow Up. And one of the projects we would do is they would make armor together. And there is a wonderful book that every dad of a son should read called Raising a Modern Day Knight. And in that book, Richard Lewis talks about forming an identity for your family, where your children understand what your family's all about. Like for my kids, what does it mean to be a Daugherty? What does it mean to have that last name right now in this house? What are we identified by? One of the verses, as I said last night, was Psalm 78. That is what we're identified by, that the generations to come might know. Well, these fathers and sons had to develop, I don't know why these two have 4 Charlie Browns as the identity of their family, but that one over there having some verses on it, they had to together decide, what do we want to be known for? What, in light of the Scriptures, in light of this world and where we live, what is our identity? That was a lot of fun. We did, at the same time, a mothers and daughters class. We used a charm course curriculum. We used a book called Polished Cornerstones. And while the fathers and sons were on one side of the church, the mothers and daughters were on another, doing some crafts and having some great lessons on womanhood and honoring God, purity, those types of things, to help kids understand, help daughters understand, your heart belongs to Jesus. Leave it that way. Don't give it away too soon. You know what I mean? My 15-year-old daughter is such God has really blessed us. And part of it is her own determination. Part of it is God's grace. And part of it is something we did when she was little. Just constantly telling her, your heart belongs to Daddy and your heart belongs to Jesus. And you don't need to give that to anyone else. When you hear other girls talk about how cute that boy is and how this boy and that, you don't even need to talk like that, because it's too soon to give your heart to anyone else. And so my 15-year-old daughter, I heard her just a couple weeks ago having a conversation with a friend on the phone saying, why would you even date? Why? What a distraction. Why set yourself up for heartbreak? And my daughter said, I will not date until I'm in college. And I've joked around about things like that, but for her to decide, to make that determination, this is my time with God, this is my time to focus on school and whatever, and really, it was part of the seeds we planted. So we tried to do that, to encourage dads, to encourage moms, plant that in the heart of your daughter when they're really young. Parents of young children, this was the biggest target for parenting classes. These were the people that I would personally go after and say, now is the time. You don't want to be sitting in the youth pastor's office like many parents do 10 years from now saying, fix my kid in a day. Let's help you. We want to help you now. Disciple that child to honor God, to be different than most of the kids around them. And so those are the parents, again, we would go after personally. Of course, classes, small groups, caring for them, being a resource and support. I remember when we first started Family Ministries, and our first daughter was our first child was very young, and I'm no authority at all, but I said to them, any question you have, however we can help you, bring it to us. And I would look like a really smart guy, but really what I was doing is taking their question and sending it off to Focus on the Family. It used to be info@focusonthefamily.org, and they'd write back and they'd say, check out this book and that book. And so I'd send it to the parent, and I'd look like this great resource when really I was just sending it to them. But it was helping. Elementary age children, continuing those parenting classes. I'm going to tell you a bunch of those. Ministering in ways that you support all different types of schooling. But how can we help the public school families best disciple their kids? The homeschool families, the Christian school families. Not to ostracize anyone, but to say, how can we help all of you? Parents of teens, we didn't stop with the small groups, continuing it with them. We had a parents of teens class that involved the teens with them, where they would break off for part of the time and come together for part of the time. Okay, this is some of the best curriculum that I believe is out there. Growing Kids God's Way, starting here on the West Coast in California. It has received some flack for various things. I'll tell you that anyone who criticizes it, there's a couple reasons. One thing is I think they take things too legalistically. Not the curriculum, but people say, well, they say you should do this. And no. When they give you the suggestion of when your child wants to interrupt you, that they come up and put their hand on your arm, they're not saying that you better do that or you're a filthy, rotten sinner. They're giving you a good idea, okay? So people have criticized it as being too legalistic. I don't believe it is, because it's not meant to be that way. Reflections of Moral Innocence. By the way, the first 4 are at gfi.org. Growing Families International. The second one, Reflections of Moral Innocence. It is not too early to begin teaching modesty to children at a young age so that we don't have to talk to them later about scantily dressed this or too tight of that. And so how do we help parents help their kids with modesty even at a young age? It's a short curriculum. I think it's only 6 weeks long. You have parents in there saying, well, my parents always walked around the house in their underwear. Well, you're not going to do that anymore because you're going to teach your kids modesty. You're going to start with that. And, anyway. gfi.org. Reaching the heart of preparing for adolescence. Bringing up kids without tearing them down, making children in mind without yours. Those are both by Kevin Lehman, author Kevin Lehman. Great stuff. He is more into reality discipline, with more the older years. In the younger years, the parent is mostly a referee. These are the rules, these are the penalties, and this is why you're going into the penalty box or whatever. As they get older, reality discipline, when they really understand matters. For example, Kevin Lehman will say, for the boy who refuses to eat what his mom makes, Mom, set the table. Don't set a place for him. Don't call him to dinner. And when he comes down and he says, where's mine? Say, well, you don't like spaghetti, so we didn't set a place for you. Well, aren't you going to make me anything else? No, this is what we're having. And, those types of things. Or if a child's always late and getting down to the car to go to soccer, well, we're not going to soccer practice today. Well, I'm going to get in trouble. Well, you should have thought of that. Those type of things. To be a firm parent. Kevin Lehman has a lot of those great principles. Shepherding a Child's Heart. Very dry video series, but very excellent book and just very good content. I did a parenting conference just a few weeks ago in Texas, and the person organizing it said, what's one book we could buy to give to the parents that goes along with what you'll be teaching for the whole day? And I said, Shepherding a Child's Heart. It's a great book. If you have families in your church that are blended, divorces and remarriages, there's a good curriculum by Kevin Lehman. Again, it's DVD. It's about 8 weeks long. It didn't really even dawn on me for a while that we could fill a whole class with these types of families, and it met a huge, huge need. When they were able to talk to each other and glean from this author, it was very powerful. Parenting in the Pew, I mentioned that. 8-week marriage group. 10 great dates to energize your marriage. Great way for you to reach out to families in your churches. We know that the primary relationship in a family is husband and wife. So even though that seems way outside the bounds of children's ministry or youth ministry, we should still be investing. What time are we ending? 11? 5 more minutes. Okay, we should still be investing into those. This is a great way. Okay, here's what happens. Couples come to the church. 10 Friday nights in a row is how we did it. Bring your kids. We're going to watch your kids. But you're going to have to stay for about a 20-minute class first. And you're going to go out from the church on a date and do the assignment that you're given. The rules are no double dating and no going to things like movies where you don't interact or talk to each other. We'll watch your kids for 2 hours, but the deal is you do the homework. And we had people immediately saying, when's the next one, when we were done? Because it, again, forced them into a situation to really invest in each other. It was a great outreach. Family Sunday School. There's one of those couples who didn't have kids yet. Now they have 4. But there they are in training, having a group of kids for the summer. We had some empty nesters in the class there too. I don't see them right now. Here's the book, picture of the books we used, 2 of them. Heritage Builders, Money Matters, Family. See, the Family Night tool chest shows up on some of them, this phrase here. Heritage Builders shows up on some of them. There are at least 10 different ones, maybe even as many as 15. They're not designed for this, but they're perfect for it. We had a class, creation science family class. We had parents saying, my child is being taught this and that, and I don't know how to answer their questions. Well, we got some great curriculum from answersingenesis.org, and we said, well, we're going to have a Tuesday night class. It's going to be, it's an extra night for you, but if you and your child would like to take this together, let's do that. Evangelism together. You know that when you serve with people, that you form a tighter bond with those people. So why not offer that to families? Why do we have this outreach and that outreach, and an outreach for teens and an outreach for young adults? Let's invite families to do outreaches together. Our Sidewalk Sunday School was perfect for that. Even if a child stood on the stage and held a poster while the child taught a lesson, it was meeting a huge need. We did we started family missions trips. And this is what prompted me to start the slides, because, what was your name again? Lisa, when you were asking me, I don't know, something, I'm quite ADD sometimes. Whatever you said took me to 20 different thoughts that took me to this. Anyway, family missions trip. Why do the teens have the market on missions trips? Why is it always AIM? And we actually had some parents start to say that. And they prompted me to kind of sit back and say, well, you're right. Why can't we have parents and kids go on trips together? Why can't we have parents, kids, and teenagers and grandparents go on a trip together? And so we drove all the way from Minnesota, all the way down to Texas. Mexico, through Texas. And we ministered in an orphanage. And again, just like those small groups I told you about, it was the teens who surprised me the most, who said, can we do more of these? Why do we always do trips with just teens? I love the fact that I got to know people of different ages from my church that I never knew before. I've been in this church my whole life, and I never knew that person. I never knew that person, and I've never seen those parents. And for them to be able to interact with so many different people, and then to voice it, was a huge thing. In our district in Minnesota, we always had family camp, which kind of annoyed me because family camp was usually split up the family camp. Come to family camp, everybody. But yet families would rarely see each other. So we said, well, okay, fine, we're just going to do our own. And I'm not telling you rebel against the district or anything like that. But we're going to say, well, let's do a family camp and keep it a family camp. Keep them together. Okay, one last thing that I have to mention. I'm sorry I'm over. But Family Worship Sunday was one of the biggest. I'm sorry, that's just too much text for you to grasp. Family Worship Sundays was one of the best things we instituted. And what that was the fourth Sunday of every month, we would have the children in the adult service. For a while, we did just during worship time, just to kind of get people used to it. And then we prepared the people that we're going to do this for the entire time. We had parents angry. This is my time. How am I going to be able to worship? We had older people say, this is going to be a distraction. We addressed those kinds of concerns very politely, but very truthfully, saying, worship isn't about you. Worship is about Him. And if Paul and Silas could be beaten and put in chains and still worship the Lord, you can sit there with your kids for 20 minutes and still worship the Lord. Anyway, we didn't quite say it that way, but in a much nicer way. And we had some adjustments to make. My senior pastor, who is at least 25 years older than me, had to be open to us kind of mentoring him to use more visual methods, to include the kids in the service more, to not just have, here's something I would suggest you not do if you do this. Don't just pull the kids forward, teach them for 5 minutes, and let them go back to their seat in color for the rest of the service. Because that just kind of tells them, this is your time, now you can go back and check out for the rest of the time. But think of ways that you can involve them. There's a wonderful author, Baptist man named John Piper. This John Piper, if you've ever read any of his books, he teaches and writes at a very high intellectual level. His church does not have a kids' church at all. And he makes it he's very purposeful to just say, hey kids, in the middle of the sermon, to pull them right back in. Hey kids, Jesus told this story. I would have never pictured John Piper being that type of a guy because of the way he writes and how deep he is. But his church does that, and they do a lot of really cool things. But anyway, we had to make those kind of adjustments. I preached a sermon series to kind of kick this off. 3 weeks the pastor gave me to just kind of prepare, to tell the older people especially, you've been taught all your life, and you've taught the next generation, don't talk in church. We're going to tell parents, please talk in church. Please talk to your kids during the service. And that might bother you, but what's more important, your preference or the training of the generations who come behind us? And so we had to just kind of be firm on some of those things and say, you're just going to have to get used to it. Okay, one thing that we did for that is we created a series of bulletins. Our pastor did not preach a linear type sermon, points or acrostics. He'd start with the text and then ideas from the text. And so we said, let's build our bulletins around the type of sermons that he preaches. We had a sermon wheel. There would be questions on here for the kids to fill in. And then they would bring this to me at the end of the service for a prize. Pastor Don was the guy we hired as children's pastor under me later. But each month was a different one. We would say, at the beginning of the service, I would always say, parents, please talk to your kids. Do the bulletin together as you listen to the sermon. Help them glean. So we have a discipling process going on. And, all right. My website is darrendaugherty.com. I have my cards out here on the table. Out here on the table, our southwestern table, are my cards with my website. Go to my website and you'll have 12 of these bulletins that you can download for free. One for each month of the year. And it's a good tool for you to use as you incorporate kids into the services too.
Thank you for listening to the 2009 Fusion Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.